Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so Mark was saying my name is Andrew Vadiak. I'm a junior. I'm just going to share a little bit about my story. Sorry for my handshake. I'm not a super strong public speaker. So I was born in Corpus Christi. My father was an airline pilot. Kind of funny that I'm speaking on this day considered it's Veterans Day, but this is good. Alright. I moved to Pensacola, Florida for a little bit. I lived in Beaufort, South Carolina. I lived in New Jersey. And I lived in Ohio. And I stayed there until I graduated high school. My parents raised me up in a Christian home. I accepted the Lord when I was fairly young. So one of the first things my parents did when we moved to Ohio was they decided it was essential to get plugged into a church where we lived. I didn't know a lot of people moving there at an older age, so met some neighbors. I got really close with the guys in my youth group in my church. I ended up playing in the youth group, in the high school group, and then eventually in the sanctuary on the worship team. And that was huge for me, just getting plugged in with the community where I lived. So one of the first people I met was my neighbor right across the street. He was a good family friend. He was about 4 years older than me. I wanted to just do everything like this guy, Chris. He played lacrosse, so I started playing lacrosse when I was in 3rd grade. I remember going to see him when I was in high school, playing varsity lacrosse games. He ended up getting a scholarship to go play at a D1 school, so I was like, dang, this guy's the man. So I wanted to do everything like him. But that's significant in my life because although I always wanted to play lacrosse, I realized one of the big things in my life was I was a much more talented musician. So this led through, this is something I experienced all the way through middle school and then into high school. My junior year was when it was like a big deal for me. I wanted to be accepted by my friends in the orchestra, and I wanted to be accepted by my friends on the lacrosse team. In high school, I think it's probably everybody's experience, the personalities in the orchestra and the lacrosse team are very different. So what it took to be accepted by my friends on the lacrosse team was much different from what it took for me to be accepted by my friends in the orchestra. So like I was saying, just playing in the worship team at my church really became my identity through that time. I remember just being in high school and walking down the hallway and somebody new would come up to me and be like, hey man, I went to CCC, I went to Christ Community Chapel, I saw you playing up there, it was awesome. I was like, thank you so much. But I quickly realized that although I was playing there, that was my identity wasn't in the Lord. Although I knew Christ, my passion wasn't to follow him, but it was to be known, to play in front of 2,100 people on a weekend and get recognition for it for myself. That became really evident as I experienced this struggle of being accepted by my friends in these two different groups. And I quickly cast my relationship with the Lord to the side, then in my junior year, beginning of my senior year. And I was like, I'm going to start taking the invite to go drink with my buddies and just get drunk off by the golf course behind my friend Zach's house. And that really just infected a lot of different parts of my life, my family. I was hardly a role model to my brothers. I remember just arguing with them all the time, just not being, a great influence. My dad was an airline pilot at the time, and still is, so he'd be off flying all the time. And when I should have been comforting my mom, who was trying to, essentially raise 3 kids of her own while her husband was, providing for their family, I was arguing with her all the time. We were tearing each other down, and that was really difficult for me and my family. And this carried into my freshman year of college, when I just desired this freedom to just escape being told what to do all through high school, how to live my life. I was like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to make my own rules. I'm going to have this sense of freedom that I feel. I'm going to be able to drink whenever I want to. I don't have to worry about my parents breathing down my back. I'm going to join a fraternity. I'm going to do whatever it takes, to be that cool guy. And what I thought would get me accepted for myself was, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to try and just be the craziest guy. I'm going to be the funniest guy. I'm going to be the craziest guy. I'm going to have, the guy who has all these stories. And really, as you can imagine, it wasn't, didn't end up being the most fulfilling thing in my life, obviously. I quickly realized the shame I felt every morning waking up when I did something I really regretted. just chasing acceptance from the older guys, chasing after girls. None of that, made me full. And it wasn't until I spoke with somebody in the house who's living for the Lord that I really realized why this unfulfillment I was feeling, was because this life I thought I was living that was going to bring me these results, this sense of freedom, this sense of acceptance, that I never really fully grasped, was totally because I wasn't living the life I was trying to well enough, but just because I was living the completely wrong life altogether. And I look back now, and it's so easy to see all the ways that the Lord was with me every step of the way through these difficult times, through college, through pledgeship, and how He was there right with me. If I just called out to Him, He would have pulled me out of that situation. He would have helped me through it, and that's huge. Looking back now, so after I talked to this guy in my fraternity who was looking for the Lord, I decided, this is absolutely true. This is what I've learned, what I've heard in church, all these years when I was playing, when I was in youth group. Like, I know the message, but I just realized that my relationship with Christ wasn't personal. It was very much distant. And if you ask me now, or you ask me what I'm seeking after now, it's completely different. I want to fully realize every day the way that the Lord loves me despite my faults. The way that He's with me, every step of the way. I'm not without sin. I struggle with it every day. I fall short all the time. But He's there right with me. He forgives me, all the time. And this is easily something now that fulfills me in every way that I wish. Fulfills me now compared to the life I was living before. And I think if there were like a few things I wish I knew back then, it would just be a couple points. Feelings are a necessary and essential aspect of our relationship with Christ. I look back now, and I would have doubts, I would have struggles, and the kind of advice I would get, or I just told myself, was, hey, I'm probably just not trying hard enough. I have doubts. I'm not believing hard enough. I'm not, doing whatever else. You need to strip your emotions from it and just try hard to push that out of your mind. And I think about a sermon I heard while I was, back in my church in Hudson. And one of the guys who our church sponsored, who was a missionary, came back from the field, and he was telling a story just about doubts he had all the time as a missionary. And I think the big thing I took away from it was we're never not going to have doubts, or we're not going to have struggles. We're intellectual people. But it's what we do with those. It's, we're called to pray through those doubts and just trust the Lord. And He's going to reveal Himself and change our heart. I think that's huge. I wish I'd realized. And then just one other analogy that I'm going to give. Sorry if I'm all over the place. One of the guys that I love listening to is Judah Smith. He's a preacher out west, and he gave this sermon online completely off of Psalm 51, specifically verse 12, which says, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me." And essentially where he takes it, he makes a lot of awesome insight, references and everything else, but he gets to the point where he talks about he has all these mothers in his church, and they'll have newborn children, and they'll ask him to come and hold their child and pray over him. And obviously he's like, absolutely. But he goes, it's funny. These mothers, they can hold their children all day. They can cook with their child. They can, they can run errands. They can do everything else. But he said, I would get there. I have children of my own. I'd hold the child. I'd pray over it, and then 2 minutes I'd be like, I got to get rid of this child. It's a human being. It creeps me out. So he passes it off, and he references our relationship with the Lord. I think about my life and all the times that I slip up, all the times that I didn't call on the Lord. I tried to do things my own way. I tried to fix my heart the way I thought was best. Clearly crash and burn in a lot of ways, but I would have been a very heavy child for God to hold, to walk me through all the stages where I was growing up and maturing. But He never put me down once. He never said, I'm tired of this. I'm going to set Andrew down for a while. And I just think that's a powerful thing for me to look back on now. Is just know that He was there with me every step of the way. He's with me now every step of the way.